sit there and Okay, I'll call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Thursday, January 3rd, 2018. Start with a pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any agenda items you'd like to add?
We can't add them to a special meeting agenda.
Can't add them to a special meeting agenda. Okay, can we take one out of order?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I'll ask it. I'd like to take item number E11, discussion of transfer for assessor travel expenses out of order, and take it as unfinished business B. I had it B, mainly because Helen Tots is going to be here and talk about it. No reason to make her stay later than necessary.
You mean 10E?
10E, yeah. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next order of business is hemp discussion. And
Can't get away from this.
for those of you who don't know, sitting at that table over there is Ruben Flores Marzan, and he's our new planning person, so he's in charge of the planning department. And he comes from Massachusetts, and they grow hemp in Massachusetts, and so he's going to bring us some ideas. But before I give Ruben the floor, I'd like to read what I discovered about hemp. First thing is the newspaper article here on December 30th for the Current. And it says, as part of a new farm bill, Congress voted last week to make industrial hemp a legal agricultural product. President Trump actually signed it on December 20th. And there's a picture of a guy here, and it says, Don Tuller, a West Simsbury farmer and president of the Connecticut Farm Bureau, wants the state to move fast to enable hemp planting this spring. And another thing that this Tuller says in the article is, Tuller said of the push to get hemp cultivation, that it could bring a farmer as much as $100,000 an acre. And this being a agricultural town, our farmers might be interested in it. And also, if you read our website, it says we like our rural charm, and to keep our farms, we have to make them profitable, and this may be a way to do it. Also, talking a little about hemp, there's many agricultural uses for hemp, and it was not legal in the United States until just recently. And some of the things you can use hemp for are apparel, like textiles, like diapers and fabrics and handbags and working clothes, denim, socks. Technical things like twine, rope, nets, canvas bags. Other industrial products like composite mold parts, brakes, clutches. Paper, like just printing paper, fine specialty papers. Building materials like fiberboard and fiberglass substitutes, and I'm just mentioning a few. Foods like salad oil and margarine, birdseed, technical products like oil paint and varnishes, and a number of other products. So, and also marijuana is a hemp, but it's
No, it's a derivative of the cannabis sativa plant.
okay.
The
And
difference-
is hemp a derivative of cannabis?
Cannabis sativa, yes.
Okay.
The difference is the THC level.
The difference is the THC level. And so I'm going to let Ruben talk about it a little, but Jason knows a lot about it too. I think he's probably the the expert in the state. So maybe Jason can fill us in a little bit. Yeah. So go ahead, Ruben.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Yes, Jason possibly knows much more about hemp and cannabis than I do, but and possibly some of the farmers in the crowd, if I have any farmers in the audience. I used to live in a farm back in Puerto Rico, 5 acres, but nothing like hemp, just plantains and stuff. But one of the attractive things in town that attracted me to get this job, to apply and get this job, was the opportunity that in East Windsor you have the opportunity of being productive and prosper using the land for agriculture, but also for commercial and residential uses. You do not find that happening in many places in the U.S., at least in the northern part, northeastern part of the country. So like Bob was saying, hemp has been legalized by the federal government, Congress, and the President of the United States. In East Windsor, you have the opportunity that every single zoning district allows for agricultural uses. A little bit of the history of hemp. There was a lot of back and forth from the 1800s, and actually thanks to Peg here, my colleague, she was kind enough to build this for me. This hope you guys probably seen it and you probably contributed to it. You have a history of hemp. Then because of federal legislation and many decades later on, with the cannabis and marijuana trying to put those two together. And the difference is, like Jason was saying, about the THC, which is the active component. You do not get high with hemp. So now that science and evidence through research has basically elaborated and presented that fact, the policymakers were able to move this forward. And we're up to the point of today where we have legalized hemp, industrial hemp in the U.S.
Just hemp. There's no more industrial.
No more industrial. Thank you so much. So the opportunity now is at the local level, we're pretty much, set to move forward. We need the state of Connecticut, just like the other states in the U.S., they need to devise a plan. There are two choices. They can either devise a plan at the state level where they say, here's where we'll be implementing hemp in our state. The guidelines and the regulations to govern what I'm going to be looking like at the state level, at the local level. Or, part number two, they can go through the U.S. Department of Agriculture and say, okay, USDA, go ahead and produce some standards for us. I think we have very capable people in town and the state working in the State Department of Agriculture. I think we should be basically going forward and working in collaboration with our partners at the state in getting this thing going. One thing that I would suggest would be for the town perhaps to consider a letter of support for hemp, produce it for the State Department of Agriculture, and look at the town of East Windsor as a pilot community to start off a project for hemp. That's something that obviously needs much more deliberation, but it's just a thought. These are states in the U.S. are looking at the same, having the same conversations right now. The only thing is that we have the zoning in place to get this thing going and pick up on that momentum. So there are a bunch of reports and documents online, paper, building materials, food, hemp oil, a bunch of different things. So I'm not a farmer, I'm a planner, but I look at this and I see jobs, and I see opportunity, and I see establishing a supply chain here in town where you have the farmers producing the crop. We have industrial sites in town, areas where we have the zoning in place, where we could actually manufacture and produce different goods and services. And then we have Route 5, lots of different areas where we could establish, points of sale. So within town, you could have those three things: the crops, the manufacturing, the testing, and then producing the goods and services. And you close, you're abutting I-91, just up the road, Springfield, Hartford down south, and access to the world via the airport. So that's all I have. Planning and development, we're just trying to, get the opportunities and connect the dots.
Ruben, what are the things that we can do as...
So this is our office right there. So I'm Ruben, I go by first names, so I'm there, thank you.
What can we do as a town to get us out ahead of the rest of the town in the state of Connecticut? Should we be writing ordinances
I think the first step is what the law intends, to have that connection, that conversation with the State Department of Agriculture and say, hey, we'd like to be first in line in Connecticut and become a pilot community, and we have the ability of working hand in hand with staff at that department.
Is that something you can set up?
Absolutely not.
No.
That is a tremendous conflict of interest.
I'm sorry?
There's no way I will do that.
Okay.
No, you wouldn't do it, but we as a town probably should. Is that correct?
I have no comment on that at all.
Okay.
It's our short choice.
Steve?
All right, this all sounds crazy to me. I've been a farmer for a lot of years, and farmed 500 acres. If this has been made law, farmers can raise hemp. Okay? So now the state's got to okay the growing of hemp, right? Okay. So if that's okay, if they make it so that the farmers can raise hemp, why in the hell do they have to get permission from anybody, or does the town have to get permission from anybody to go ahead and just start growing hemp? Now my next question is, from what I see, it's not an easy thing to harvest. You don't just run a combine through this stuff. From what I can understand, it's picked. Like tobacco, it would be like broadleaf. You pick leaves and whatever. Where the hell are you going to get the help to do it? That's the whole thing. Where are you going to get the help? You're not going to get the help. A guy can raise 50 acres of hemp, he ain't going to get it harvested. Okay? And this thing, $100,000 an acre, that's got everybody drooling. Okay? It sounds far-fetched to me. And I don't know why we need to be the first town doing it. If these guys that are farmers here want to do it, they just go and do it. They plant it and they do it. But where are you going to get the help to harvest it? Okay? That's the whole thing. It's going to be labor intense. I guess we could become a sanctuary town and get all the illegals up here, and we'd have all kinds of labor. That's supposed to be a joke, people. You're not laughing. Most of the Democrats, I guess. But anyway, this sounds crazy to me.
Well,
If the guys want to grow it, then they grow it. I don't know why anybody has to give them permission to do it. And what I do see coming down the pike, is what I see coming down the pike, I see a tax somewhere. It's hidden here somewhere. I see a tax coming on this stuff from the state, if you want to grow it. Some way, somehow, there's going to be a tax incorporated in this. That's all I got to say.
Where do they grow this now, that they have the yield that's going to say you get $100,000 in revenue per acre?
Well, it depends on what you're using the hemp for. If you're making rope, you're not getting $100,000 per acre. What everybody's excited about is the opportunity to get to the oils. It's the cannabidiols, the CBDs that have the medical application that's really the rainmaker in terms of the cash crop aspect of this cash crop. So pharmaceutical companies are really interested in it. The medical marijuana companies in the state are really interested in it. The opportunity to have some sort of a diversified cash flow is very appealing to anybody who's in production agriculture, in a sector that has been struggling, dairy in particular, tobacco not far behind. So it's the end use, not the, so when you're growing corn, you grow corn. When you're growing industrial hemp, or when you're growing hemp, it depends on which one of those 25,000 different applications you're growing it for. That determines what the value is.
Does it change how you have to raise it? Do you have to, the pharmaceutical hemp, does that have to be raised undercover in greenhouses, for example, compared to field hemp, which is used for construction equipment?
That's to be determined. You know, there's one, as Ruben pointed out, what the state is going to have to do is prepare and submit a plan of enforcement and regulation to USDA that will have to be approved by the Department of Justice too, to set up our state's regulatory structure around this product. What goes into that plan will determine whether or not there are fencing requirements or indoor-outdoor components or individual harvester licensing requirements. So if you're working on my farm, we both have to be registered, is an open question at the moment. There is a lot of work that's going to happen here in a really short amount of time.
Do you think the state is serious about stepping out on this?
Oh yes, very much so.
Because there appear to be a lot of states that are ahead of us.
There are something like 27 states that have industrial hemp pilot programs. Those have been done away with under the new Farm Bill. They were allowed under the 2014 Farm Bill and done away with under the 2018 Farm Bill. So there's no more pilot anything. It's just a program.
But they have experience.
Yeah, I think there's 27 states that have something going.
That's what I thought.
Is that where that number came from, the 100,000 per acre, based on what the others have done in the past?
I don't know that that's where that number came from.
That's a big number.
So, but I throw 27, the last time I looked, there were 27 states that had a program. It's probably more now. But there's like 22 different programs. So my agency has submitted 2 pieces of legislation, one of which we've already canceled because it was predicated on the 2014 Farm Bill and isn't worth the paper it's printed on. The second one looked to pull the best aspects of those programs that have been successful around the country, so that we can attempt to emulate success instead of failure. We also have opportunities to work with partners. Really led the charge to open this up as a new opportunity. In fact, that the state plan of enforcement and regulation that needs to be submitted to USDA, Commissioner Quarles from Kentucky handed theirs to Secretary Perdue at the bill signing. So as soon as we saw that on social media, the first thing that we did was emailed Commissioner Quarles' office and said, can we have your plan? Because that's one this is a brand new thing. So there aren't templates for it yet, except maybe Kentucky's. So that's one of the things that the state's looking at to base what Connecticut's plan would be. We're also looking to trade associations that might have some uniform templates that are going to be used across the country and that might be pre-blessed by USDA in terms of securing approvals. So we're working with the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture and the National Hemp Growers Association to figure out if there is a model that is in vogue that can be used. Currently, Kentucky's the winner.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, Paul.
Paul Anderson. Coincidentally, tomorrow I will be receiving a hemp-based medical cream that's reported to have very good results on arthritis. I have no idea what it's like yet, but I've heard firsthand from people that have used it, said it's wonderful. So medical uses have a lot of potential. I don't know the value yet, but that's just happened in the last 48 hours that I've learned this. So there's a potential right there. If you go to medical, there's money.
I got a call today from a company from out of state that was looking to start doing business in Connecticut with hemp-infused beverages. There's a lot of people who are calling the state asking a lot of really good, really hard questions, and you know, this has been inked now for all of about 3 weeks. So we're, and by the way, the federal government's closed, so there's nobody to ask. It's a challenge, and we're struggling and scrambling real fast to try and be ready for the start of the legislative session, where the incoming administration and the leadership in the legislature have all said, this is something that's important, we want to do this right away. Oh, and by the way, hundreds of farmers have called the office with interest in this. I get, this is the single most frequent call I get is somebody who's interested in something to do with hemp. I'm actually sick of it.
Yes, Kurt.
Kurt Bonstream. Ruben, I'd like to welcome you aboard.
Thank you.
I honestly might, just to cut to the chase, if the 2018 Farm Bill was approved by the federal government, I would hope everybody on this board is supportive of that. Agriculture, you know, our plan of the conservation and everything else to save this town, they're on board, we should be on board. So anything you can do, if it's a letter to start the process, I totally support that in any way, shape, or form. That's my personal opinion. There should be no resistance from this board in any way if the federal government already says that it's on board. If you get resistance at this level, you're just going to wreck it for everybody in this town. And there's probably a lot of farmers that aren't here now, but just, I think, you know, again, just, the federal is on board, we should be on board.
Yeah, Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy Simonelli. I certainly have no problem with hemp. I understand it has medical properties are great. My concern is the physical resemblance to marijuana. And if you're growing one, I think we have to involve the police department and what it would take for them to be able to monitor and understand. I'm not saying it's a no, I'm saying we need to understand, because that may cost us more than we get back at it in the long haul, if it's a lot more time and money and effort for them to be able to distinguish between legal hemp being grown and illegal marijuana being grown.
So it's unlikely that this is going to be left to local enforcement.
Okay.
I don't believe that this is going to be something that the local police anywhere in the state are going to be responsible for testing or securing or...
My guess is they're going to have their eyes open at least, because you can't have the state police.
So there's
not enough bodies to do that kind of patrol on the state level.
So let's look at the medical marijuana application process. There's only a handful of those that have been approved. I think there's 14 that have been approved throughout the whole state. The state knows specifically where those places are, how much they produce, who works there, what their security measures are. There's a whole litany of the regulatory side.
There's a lot of stuff around it.
Yeah,
okay.
And because this is a crop so there are a whole ton of questions that don't have answers yet. Is the state going to allow everybody who wants to grow it? Are we going to license a certain number of facilities like we do with medical marijuana? Who needs to be registered in order to grow it? What's the registration fee in order to grow it? Which is what also ultimately is going to pay for the enforcement of the plan. There are more questions that don't have answers that I can come up with right now.
Right, and that's my only concern. I think our farmers deserve the opportunity to grow this if that's what they want to do, and if they feel they can make more money with that than they're making with tobacco or with whatever else it is that they're growing. I'd love to see that if it can work here. I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions that we need to be careful about how we go about it.
So one of the things that the state, I have to be careful here, but one of the things that the state will be doing is working along a parallel track throughout the legislative process. Traditionally what happens is when you're trying to do something like this, you write and pass a bill, and then you design regulations to support that bill. What will happen, I expect, this time is the bill has been drafted and has been submitted, and if it is in fact green-lit, which I expect that it will be, At the same time that that bill is working its way through the legislative process, the state will also be working on the enforcement plan, so that all of those unanswered questions can be essentially fast-tracked, and at the time of passage, rather than having to start the whole process over again from the regulatory perspective, at the time of passage, a fully developed plan of enforcement can be submitted to USDA. It takes about 6 weeks from planting to harvesting, so you can get a couple of cuts a year. We're hoping that 2019 is not an entirely lost year. This is going to come real fast.
Well, yeah, and as you say, Ruben, being in on the early stages of it gives our farmers an opportunity to make more money than if we're in on the later stages of it. And certainly, if there's money to be made for our residents, I'd like to see that happen.
Better be ahead of the wave.
Be ahead of the wave, exactly. Not too far ahead, because that ends up, you kind of crash and burn. But yeah, you want to be riding the crest of that wave, so that you're not making the mistakes. You have the history of other people to look at and to understand from. And
so there are future meetings of the Agricultural Commission. There's one on the 10th, and I believe there's one on the 24th. So we're going to be, having the same conversation, and you guys want to spread the word, more than welcome to attend as well.
Also, I read somewhere, and Andy, you can probably say better than me, I guess the marijuana, or the one with greater than 0.03 THC, has a heat signature. So if you flew over a field, you could tell what was grown, whether it was hemp or marijuana, so there's some detection there. But you're right, there's a lot of questions to be answered.
well, and if the regulations are so tight such that they know exactly where it's being grown and where it's allowed to be grown, then if they see it someplace else, then it's almost automatically not what they're supposed to be.
Not what they're making
right. It
out
kind of
of.
makes it fairly obvious. You don't even need the heat seeker. You
Yeah.
just go, yeah, it's not supposed to be there, so that's probably not hemp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any, yes.
My question, to process this for medical uses, now is that a difficult process? And would we need plants or something around here to do this process?
According to the literature, you press the seeds, and then you get the oil. And from that oil is where you make all the compounds and the different products. And then, either produce it on site, and then, or take that oil and the compound and either sell it, or, but these things they need to be hashed out in much more detail than what the regulations call for.
So what will need to be developed is guidance and regulations pertaining to the cultivation, distribution, the processing, the commercial sales. This is a huge undertaking.
My point being, Ruben, that maybe that's the way we should get in front of. Try to get a processing plant on Route 5.
That would be a good idea.
Or something like that. That would be, maybe we can be ahead of everybody.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Steve?
What's gonna happen is we're not gonna be building a processing plant. Farmers aren't gonna process this stuff themselves. They're gonna sell it to a broker, just like they do with their tobacco. And then the broker will have the connections, and he'll take it from there. That's basically about the way that's gonna run.
Right, but let the broker bring it to a processing plant in our town.
But that's also not how the medical marijuana stuff works. So tobacco isn't the model here. The medical marijuana cultivation is the model. So there's an association of those folks who are like lighting the door on fire to get in.
Hey, Helen?
Just to throw my 2 cents worth in, Helen Tots, I'm the town assessor. Back in September, I attended a symposium for assessors, and one of our classes was concerning medical marijuana plants, or factories, production places. And this gentleman is correct, it's completely different from talking about raising hemp. The marijuana production facilities are so tightly controlled. Assessors, which is why we were having the conference about this, have to get special permission to do inspections for personal property. They are grown in California and I think it's Nevada, they said, secret locations, buildings that don't even have windows, extreme security. It's not out in the field like you're growing hemp or tobacco or corn in the field. The medical marijuana is being grown indoors. You're not going to be looking for signatures or stuff like that, for the legal stuff that's going on. So it's a very, very tightly watched and controlled way of doing it. So just to throw that out there, not to get too concerned about being able to tell the difference. Are they growing hemp? Are they growing marijuana? Marijuana, medical marijuana is going to be grown in a building, not in the fields.
Helen, I have a question, Charlie. That today, you know, that a farmer is growing a crop and the assessment on the property is under farmland,
Yep.
right, which is substantially less than
Yes.
other assessments. And because someone could make $100,000 an acre, won't have an impact on our tax base if it's an agricultural crop. Will
My
it?
two, as I was sitting here, my two thoughts, our tax base, I would not foresee an increase because of a crop that's almost dead. Their IRS returns and taxes to the state and to the federal government are to reflect what
Yeah.
That is correct.
and I would contact at some point, should things work out, the State Department of Agriculture to see if they would create another class, because we do have our tillable A, tillable B, tillable C. Would they create another class that would be for high income producing?
Okay.
And we would then go by their guidelines per acre.
So as it stands now, it would just be flat to where the others are.
It'd be a tillable A,
Yep.
the best,
Yep.
but, yeah, it's just the same.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not going to be a windfall for municipalities. It could substantially help people who are in production agriculture. You know, so farmers who are farming farmland can stay doing that just by growing something else. And that's one of the things you hear as you go door to door during campaign cycles. We're an agricultural community. We want to support agriculture. We want to preserve our rural character is the thing I hear over and over again. And this is a way, with a change in federal and state policy, that can be achieved at no cost to the town, or very minimal cost to the town. This isn't something that's going to pad our budget. This is something that is just going to happen because it's good for people who are working the land that we have, and they're not going to build other stuff with that land, which helps our budget.
Yes.
Yeah, crops change, farmers grow whatever makes money, and so it's going to get saturated, I think, with hemp. If it comes to pass and it makes a lot of money, then everybody's going to grow it, and then the price will go down, and things will adjust. And that's the way it always goes, but the key is to keep the farmland there to be able to switch back and forth and grow whatever they need to grow. Anything you can do to keep the farmland profitable, we'll keep it in place, and you can grow whatever you need, whenever you need it.
If I could just follow up on Tom's earlier point about a processing facility. What I believe will happen is now that hemp is out of the Controlled Substances Act, one of the potential huge opportunities is the available of investments. Because banks had been very hesitant to invest prior in anything that's against federal law, like cannabis, because the feds could conceivably have assets. That's different now.
find out how we can best position ourselves to be one of the preeminent towns to be considered for hemp growing and production of products, processing of products, if that's what we choose to do. And I'd like to charge Ruben with the responsibility of putting together a little plan as to what we can do to best position ourselves. Who we go talk to, what kind of things we have to do. Do we need ordinances? Probably not, but do we need them? How do we market the land we have here to those who would be in a position to decide whether they would give us growing rights and processing facilities and so on. You know, as Jason describes it, it's going to be a fast-moving activity. And you need to be out front of those kind of activities, or else you're never going to climb on board the train. So I'd like to ask you to kind of spearhead what you think has to be done to best position us so that we can be one of the preeminent towns to be considered for the growing of it, the processing of it, and whatever else goes along with it that I don't even know about.
But I think we should decide here to request that Bob send a letter to the state immediately that this is our intention to be a pilot town to do this.
I don't know, I agree that I should move forward. What I wrote down is maybe I should talk to the state legislatures, like Chris Davis or Tim Larson or somebody like that, and get a feel for things and how we should approach things. But you're asked, and Ruben might be able to help. We've got to let the state know we're here, and we're, as you say, open for business, and maybe you've got a processing plan in here and get some capital. So, yeah,
But I think first, I don't see anything wrong with tomorrow morning sending a letter to the state that, you know.
Do you want to send it to Lamont?
We've had.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll send it to the governor.
I think you should send a letter to them immediately that, you know, going through the state, you know, I mean, Chris Davis represents Ellington and other towns, and I don't know what their feelings are, and so we should be out there first and foremost to tell them that that is what we would like to do. We'd like to be the leading town for this. Okay,
and I think Ruben made a good point. We are situated well, so we could distribute product on the northeast corridor anyway. So we have definitely some positive things. Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Okay, nothing further. We'll move along. So.
Thank you so much. So again, my office is down there at any time.
I move to approve the regular minutes of the December 20th, 2018 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
I'll abstain.
Communication, is there any communication? I don't have any communication. Public participation, any public participation? Tom?
Tom Talamini, American River Heritage. We had our annual first day hike this year. It was a beautiful day, as you all know. It was 51 degrees. Unfortunately, it rained the night before, and we're along the Scannick River. So we were a little wet, but anyways, we had 275 people sign up, and we estimated at least 300 people. And 346 pounds of people food donated to 5 Corner Cover, along with 5 large bags of dog and cat food. All the feedback we've been getting, it's been great. Everybody had a good time. Everybody was feet were a little muddy and dirty, but it all worked, and it was a good day by all. So it was a fun day.
Good. Good job.
Yeah. Thank you. Further public participation? Yes.
I missed the first part of the meeting, I apologize.
I see the recorder's probably working, so I can fix it on here, but just in case it's not on there. Is the town, besides those that are sitting up there, has the town had an opportunity to determine whether or not they want to be the town that's going to grow marijuana for a living? And if so, what's the tax base that the town is going to bring in from such a product like that? It's based upon the value of the product or the value of the plant? That would be my concern.
I think maybe you missed, Helen answered that she's the assessor. And do you want to repeat yourself?
Well, no, if it's on the tape, I'll see it on the tape.
Basically, okay, but basically she said that the town would not really gain revenue per se from the growing of hemp. Now, marijuana is a different product in a sense, and it's very regulated and very, and I guess there are a few places in the state that grow it. It's indoors, and so I don't think getting a place like that, but is very logical for us. I think that's a rare, out 3 weeks ago, but I think it's an opportunity, and
are hooked into getting some tax derived from the growing of hemp.
The personal property in the marijuana processing plant is millions of dollars. But again, it's the plant growing indoors, the lighting, these special watering systems, all that. But
they're very special facilities where they grow those under very controlled conditions.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that they have real value.
Yes, exceptional value.
Whereas if you were growing hemp in a field,
It's the same as growing your tobacco.
corn or soybeans or tobacco or anything else, which you'd like to believe is that if you had a lot of hemp grown here, it would make good sense to someone to set up a processing facility here which has taxable assets.
Right, exactly. The crop itself won't.
Unless they change the structure of that somewhat, right?
Right, unless they decide to create a new classification of farmland, higher field with more property than it would be assessed at a higher rate. That would be, and that would be at the state level.
And that's going to be years down
okay, any further public participation? Yes.
Kurt Monstry, I'd just like to reiterate, thank you for hearing out this concept. I mean, it's very early. And Charlie, I love your attitude of just honestly supporting the agricultural of East Windsor. You know, and that's all you can do at this point. There's too many questions to be answered in one meeting. It's just not going to happen. So you have great resources, Jason on the select board. I think farmers, Steve, Bob. I mean, I'm all about just support the 218 Farm Bill as a board and see what happens. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Bob Light. I support the agricultural development of the town too, and I don't see anywhere under unfinished business supporting the economic development of the town. So just put my 2 cents to that. Put in a second again for hiring a full-time economic development person.
Okay. Further public participation? Yes.
Hi, Melissa Maltesi, Director of Recreation and Community Services. I just wanted to extend an invitation to the board as a reminder that the Coach Mel Kleckner dedication for the high school gym is tomorrow evening. The girls varsity game will be at 5:30. The dedication will be at 6:45, followed by the boys varsity game at 7:15. Coach Coach Kleckner's family is in attendance, and they are in state and will be at the event. We'll come and present the proclamation along with Christopher Davis from the state legislature, and it should be a nice evening. So if any of you are available, we invite you to attend.
Thank you. Okay, any further public participation? Okay, hearing none, we'll go along. There's no board or commission resignations or appointments. And now we'll take out of order 10E, which is the discussion of transfer of for assessor travel expenses. And what I passed out to the board was a mileage reimbursement policy that we just developed. And this was what was discussed at the last meeting when we talked about mileage reimbursement. So I think we have a policy here that meets the criteria that you put forward. So the first thing I'd like to do is I would entertain a motion to approve this policy for mileage reimbursement. Also, I'll say that there was a question at the last board meeting, do we have policies? And indeed we do. Where they're found is you go into the website under Human Resources, and the policies are listed under there. But this is a new policy. So basically what the policy says, that if you're, and they use two terms here, official duty station, that's where you work, like town hall and the town annex. And then there's a temporary duty station, which might be a class that you're taking in New Britain, or a work-related meeting that you're going to in Hartford. Today, I went to court with the tax collector and assessor, and we participated in something. But for mileage reimbursement, if you come to work and you do have work-related activities, and then you come back to your official duty station, then the travel you did, if it's in your own vehicle, would be paid for by the town. Any question about that? And then the other breakdowns are if you were not coming to work, but rather going to a class or going to a conference or something, then you would go from your home to that conference, and you deduct the mileage that you normally travel to work from that mileage, and then you could, if you were traveling less to go to your conference and you travel to work, then you wouldn't get paid for it. But if you were traveling more, then you do use the difference to calculate the travel expenses. So that's basically what this policy says.
Here's the question I have, or do you want to?
No,
The question I have is, I'm not clear on what temporary duty station is. I think you need some definition to that.
Well, on the bottom here, this is what it says. Temporary duty station is defined as a location that an employee is assigned to that is not his or her official duty station. So it says, example, a work-related class in New Britain or a work-related meeting in Hartford. So that's a temporary duty station. That means you're going somewhere during working hours, but you're not at your normal place of work.
Well, what if somebody, is working at the high school on the grounds, and then another day wanted to come over here to work on the grounds? Is this a temporary duty station and they get paid?
No.
That's covered by an earlier clause. That the example you just outlined is covered by an earlier clause. All mileage accrued on work-related business during the workday between arrival at an employee's official duty station and departure from the official duty station is reimbursable. So if they live in Summers and they're working at their official duty station is at the town garage, but then they they have to come over to the town hall to do it, and they take their own vehicle, they can be reimbursed for the mileage between town garage and town hall.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what the clause I just read does.
Yeah, and that's what the first one here says. It would be rare that with the instance you said that they're going from, if it was Public Works, they'd probably be using Public Works truck.
Yeah.
But
and then come to the town hall and say that's 55 miles, so they're getting paid for like 15 miles.
right,
That's how that's gonna work out,
yes,
at 54.5 cents a mile.
yes.
Simple.
And this goes through who for approval?
It would go through the supervisor, or the supervisor reports to me, usually. Okay.
So the definition should be up under the scope, and we do reference the Internal Revenue Service, which should just be the GSA.
Okay? And then, to follow up, the reason Helen's here, we're going to, as soon as we sign it, so, and we might as well start doing it now, we're going to use this way of calculating mileage from now on, the rest of the year. But up to this point, we haven't been using that. And what happened, I explained last meeting, was Helen wasn't the town assessor when the budget we're currently operating on was made, and neither was Carrie, an employee. Since then, Carrie is now taking classes. We want her to take classes, and there's only $300 budgeted for travel expenses, and now we've exceeded that. And so what we ask is for the Board of Selectmen to approve $350, a transfer of $350 to cover the travel expenses for the assessor's department for the rest of the year.
Question I
Sure.
have is, so this is an everyday thing going somewhere?
Well, for Carrie, you don't have the listing here probably. What we have, I have a listing of what she's done to.
No, I'm not so much concerned about what she's doing. Just that if this is something that even if she's going once a week or she's going every day.
No, this is. Go ahead. Well,
if I may. This happened, the shortage, because Carrie actually lives in Moosa. So for her to go to a class in Rocky Hill, the mileage just accumulated. She only has one more class in this fiscal year that she will need to attend in June. That actually, the mileage from her home in Moosa to Yukon and Stores is less than her daily trip to work. So we won't need the money for her mileage to go to her next class.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one that we foresee for the rest of the fiscal year. So the deficit part, we just have to cover because of the class that she already took.
Yeah, I understand. I'm good with all that. My
But it's not a daily thing.
Yeah, okay. Even if it wasn't or it is, I guess my thing is, you know, I don't know why we don't have more usage of a town vehicle. There's one here, and there's a couple over at the town garage that are parked here.
That's a perfect example. I live close enough that for the classes and the meetings and the court, when I have to go, I come here, I get the car, and I use the town car.
Okay.
Such as it is.
Yeah.
The problem is with Carrie living in Moosa.
Yeah.
For her to drive an hour and a half here to get the car, to go back to New Britain or Rocky Hill, come back here and drive an hour and a half home.
Yeah.
That's what we were avoiding.
No, you're doing a good job with that. My point is, I guess, I know there's a lot of that stuff that goes on through the course of the year, and why we don't use the town vehicles more and have them available for the people. Since, like I said, I saw a couple of them over there that are just, you know.
Well,
not being
what we
driven.
have is one vehicle here.
Yeah,
That's what we have. Now,
Which is,
we could work.
which is a challenge to drive.
Yeah. And it's not.
I'm just throwing that out there.
yeah. But there's a couple of them over there, so why can't we get
Well,
those? as
I can
well?
look into that. We can
Yeah.
ask that question of Public Works.
Yeah. So if they're operable, just so that, you know, people have something to use.
Yeah, in general, that, like I said, I live close enough, I use the town car. This is just extraordinary
Yep.
circumstances.
So,
with
I understand. No, that's good.
So far away.
Did the right thing.
Do you have a policy on taking town vehicles out of town overnight?
That I don't know.
But I
don't
think we
see one.
should have, I'm sorry, but,
Yeah.
only because, again, if we do have something, a conference that we want to attend, take the town car, it could be a multi-day conference, and we should have a policy in place for
Yeah.
If we're gonna allow that.
Yeah, yeah. I know Bolton and Coventry both have policies that do it, but they monitor it very well,
Yeah.
as far as what I can achieve.
Yeah, we'll do that the next session.
Okay, can we approve the $350 transfer for the assessor's travel
I'll
account?
make a motion to do
Second.
All right, discussion?
Is that backing out her normal commuting mileage?
No.
Okay.
Just, okay, further discussion? All's in favor?
that.
Aye.
Okay.
I'm a no.
Okay. All right.
Could I just comment on the mileage reimbursement
Sure.
policy document here?
Yeah.
Is there a form that people fill out to get reimbursement? There is normally a form and a form number so that they come through consistently and, you know, it shows
Yes.
that.
Okay, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. We have our starting point, ending point, reason for the travel, and the odometer reading at the beginning of the trip. And Amy Hills, who was very good at Google it to make sure that. I'm just throwing that in.
Yeah. We have a very good treasurer, I'll say.
Yes.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion of the charter revision. What I wanted, I put a copy on the table. What I did was look at the question 3 and question 7 of the charter revision survey. And I thought those questions were intriguing because it said, question 3 was, in your view, what areas involving town government need more focus and support? Pretty general. Question 7, if you could change one thing about how our town government currently works, what would it be? So I said I'd like to know the answers to that, and the questions are on the website, and all the answers are in the appendix, and there was 206 people that I'm aware of answered the survey, and there were, of those questions, there were about 354 answers. Some people had more than one answer to those questions, but that was okay. I was interested in what I wasn't doing this for the charter revision. I was saying, what are people interested in the town? And also what I did is kind of consolidate things. Like if somebody said that they wanted collaboration, and somebody else said they wanted compromise, and somebody said they wanted cooperation, I said, that's working together. They're saying they want to work together. They're different terms, but they kind of mean the same thing. And I did the same, so I kind of combined some terms. But what my analysis came up with was there were 61 things that people said. Of the 61, one stood out, and I put it on the board. Communication. 62 said communication. The next one, working together, 44 people said that we should work together as a town. And the third one was transparency, that was 24. And then tied with 24 was education. So then we start getting into, but I thought it stood out to me that this town, and that's what I've always thought, but now it's confirmed. We want better communication in this town, and we want to work together, and that just makes total sense. Not really like the federal government, perhaps, but I think it's the way to run a town. So that's what I'm advocating, and I put it up there, and that's what I'm going to try to do from now on. And I encourage everybody, and I think so far in this room tonight, we've had great communication, and hopefully we can work together and we can accomplish something. So that's my speech. And moving on to the next topic, unless anybody wants to contribute.
I'd like to just say some things. At the meeting where the solicitation was discussed, there were some questions that came up about, one was the legality of for example, the line item of approval of budget. I checked with the Attorney General's office, the Office of Policy and Management, and they both said that they see no legal reason you cannot do that. They also equally said that their opinion is not an opinion that we should go with. It is something that we should go to our legal, one of our law firms, one of our legal people, and get their opinion on. I did talk to Bob DiCrescendo. He said he did not know of anything that would prohibit us from going to a line item vote. I asked him if he would do some research and provide us a written position paper on that, and he said he would. And he said he could do it in the next week or so. So I think we'll have that in a week or so. As a matter of interest, I also talked to the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and they said that the town of Prospect currently has line item approval, disapproval of budgets. I also did something else. I went to the Quinnipiac Polling Institute, Quinnipiac University, which is a very well thought of national polling organization. And I talked to Doug Schwartz, who's their director, and I outlined to him what we had done. The fact that we had sent out 6,000 solicitations, got back roughly 200. And he said, without knowing any more about it than that, that's a plus or minus 8% kind of a number. And I said, what about questions that had a predominantly one direction answer? And I gave him number one just because I had been dealing with the line item voting. And that came out to be something like 3.8 to 1 in favor of doing that. And he said that's a very significant finding. He said when you have something that is so predominant that it is it is statistically important to the answer you're looking for. He also said that if the Charter Revision Commission would send him a copy of the polling questions and the results, that he'd be happy to look at them at no cost. I also said, how about if we have another solicitation we want to send out. Will you help us put it together at no cost? And he said, well, I got to think about that one a little bit. We don't do that very much. But he said he'd think about it. So I sent a note to John Matthews that covered what I had talked to the people at Quinnipiac about, and gave him his telephone number, his email address, in case they want to take action to send it out, the solicitation out to him for review. He seemed very willing to look at it and comment.
Okay, sounds good.
Very good.
Did you talk at all about the undersampling of households?
I'm sorry?
Did you ask him at all about the undersampling questions? So households that have 4 or 5 residents in it had less of, their vote had less of an impact than households that had 1 or 2 voters in it.
Well, I didn't go into that, so I don't know the answer to that. And I think that if he's willing to get involved, we can ask those kind of questions. I have a copy of the questions I asked him, and you're more than welcome to copy that if you would. And it just simply outlined what we had done. But he thought that if you sent out 6,000, I did point out it was households, not the people, yep. Households. And he thought that that was a very large number. And the fact we got back 200 didn't really surprise him. He said that the number of returns could have been a bit higher, but it's kind of what he thought might happen. And he thought that for those items where it was predominantly in one direction by a factor of more than 2 or 3 to 1, that they were significant inputs to the poll.
According to the respondents, but by sending out the surveys to households, you're undersampling those households that have more than 2 people in them.
You are.
So predominantly households with children.
You are. No question about that. And I didn't go into that with him. I did, however, point out that we did send them out to households, and that people were free to make multiple copies of these things and send them in either by hard copy or by emailing them back, and there was no restriction on getting a double answer to a patent sent out. And,
but that needs to be, in order for it to be fair, you need to have communicated that to the people who are going to fill out the survey. If people didn't understand that they could do that, that's not, they can't be left to infer that.
Yeah, I did point out to him that we didn't give people much time, and we probably should have given them more time, that we sent it out and gave them 2.5 weeks to respond, and that I would much prefer to make it more like 4 to 6 weeks to respond. I'm not sure it would have improved the population of people who responded, but it would have given them more time to think about it.
You also want to include some demographic information, something that identifies them by demographic, not by name.
And so he pointed out that the way they do that is they try to identify some very basic things and go into the Census Bureau numbers to see whether they got back X number of women compared to the population of women in the town, X number, Y number of men compared to the number of men in town, and so on.
Right.
But
age, marital status, gender, maybe household income, those are all things you'd want to...
Those are things that we might be able to, if he's willing to help with another solicitation, it might be things that we could do better.
Or if we have other solicitations for something.
Yeah.
That's good.
I suspect we don't want to pay them. I suspect they're pretty expensive.
Well, this one cost us something like $7.20 a vote, so I don't really know that we want to do that again anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
If we spend $1,400 and we got 200 back, you're better off just handing 200 people a $5 bill. It'll be cheaper.
And tell them which way to vote.
That's how they do it in the cities.
Okay.
Information.
Further discussion? Okay, we'll go on to the casino. I really don't have anything to report on the casino, but I'll read a couple things that were in the newspaper. And on December 13th, in the Journal Enquirer, it said, Hartford state legislatures from the area are among the co-sponsors of a bipartisan bill to bypass the federal government's role in approving the changes to the tribal compacts required to open a casino in East Windsor. The bill submitted for this coming legislative session aims to clarify the U.S. Interior Department's task of approving minor changes to the state's arguments with the Mohegan and Mashantucket tribes. The goal is to secure quicker approval in East Windsor Casino to compete with MGM Springfield. Senator Timothy Larson
Seeking, who submitted his resignation last month and left the Trump administration Wednesday, is facing 2 Inspector General inquiries tied to his real estate dealings in his home state of Montana and his involvement in reviewing a proposed casino project by Native American tribes in Connecticut. So I think the heat's coming on there, and things may start to get unglued and loosen that up.
Yeah,
so that's in print, that's the case, so that's significant.
Yeah, so I think we're not forgotten yet. Okay, anything else? All right, we'll go on to the next, which is the Grace Episcopal Church on Old Ellington Road. And this Monday, Lynn Norton and Joe Sauerhofer and Melissa Maltesi and I went down to the Grace Episcopal Church, and we wanted to see if the church could be used for a senior center. We concluded that the church could serve the town as a senior center and would also provide some additional uses for the town, and we thought the cost is inviting. And so maybe, Len, you can talk a little about it.
Do we want to have the other 2 as well?
I guess not.
I'm the sacrificial lamb. I'm not afraid of you guys. No, basically what, as Bob said, we took a walk through the church, and what I did was, Joe and I, we come up with what I think needs to be done prior to the town moving into the church. This is after you pay whatever you're going to pay for the church. And I honestly have no idea what that is. Doesn't matter to me currently. So, having walked through there, the items that I think need to be completed prior to occupancy by the town, the bathrooms aren't even close to being handicap accessible. And where we're dealing with block walls, we're looking at about $30,000 to convert bathrooms to handicap accessibility. The floors.
Lynn, is that doable within the confines of the building without knocking down outside walls?
Yes. Inside walls would have to be modified, but outside walls are fine. Floors, asbestos. So.
The tiles.
Yes, yep. I would recommend that just be done, abated, and redone before the town moves in. You're not moving people around. That's around $60,000.
50K?
60, yep.
Are any of the tiles cracked?
Yeah,
There's actually,
I'm seeing head nod at the back.
there's one area where they're pretty well worn. It's actually where they currently have like classes and stuff. I think they have Sunday school there or something. They're nastily worn, actually.
The glue isn't holding, so they are raising up around the corners.
There's lighting, cabling, and electric work that will have to be done, obviously, if we're gonna put offices in there, and we're going to set it up as a senior center. That's about $30,000. Needs a new coat of paint. That's about $10,000. Now, the entire building is heated by baseboard hot water heat, but the only thing air conditioned that we can determine is the worship area. So we would need to get some air conditioning in offices and other areas. Now, when we were out,
you'd eliminate the circulating hot water and go to
no, it's actually a fairly new boiler, and they brought gas into the building. So it's gas, it's a boiler, it's hot water. And actually, today I was told they pulled the oil tank out. That was going to be one of my contingencies, and it left today apparently, from what I'm told. So we were thinking, when Bob, when we were out there, we could start to keep the cost down by throwing some window air conditioners in offices just as a start for about $3,000 if you want to get into the building. The gutters, well, it needs gutters mostly around, and there's some exterior maintenance that's going to be required, and that's going to be about $10,000. There's some miscellaneous things that need to be done. We're going to need some door closers. The big thing is we're going to have to demo the existing worship hall.
Why?
Because it's a church. There's an altar. There's a little
Pews in there?
Yes, but those are, no, they're not actually.
They're not?
I leaned on one of the slids, so they'll come out easy.
Okay.
But there's demo work that has to be done in there, there's gonna be,
Is there a pulpit? I remember a pulpit in there.
I believe so, yes.
But
It's mostly a 6-inch stage.
Yeah.
It's made out of wood, so it'd be pretty easy to take out, and probably there is some kind of a pulpit on top of it.
Yeah, and then there's like an altar, and then there's like an area that I don't even know, it's like built out, comes out, I don't know.
They're like
4'2"
cupboards
and-
or something, cabinets.
if I could ask an ignorant question, probably of Melissa, why would we want to take the stage out?
Well, I guess that's a decision you could make. It depends on how big a room you want. The sanctuary is pretty big with all the pew. And if that-
This is a number, I have $20,000 in there to do that. If it doesn't turn out to be that, then we've saved some money.
Lynn, that's got a cathedral ceiling in the church area,
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
Would you lower that in order to better heat and cool it?
I don't know, it's kind of cool, actually.
I know it is.
It looks nice.
Aesthetically,
It's
it
good
looks great,
looking, yeah.
But it's a
It's
very
kind of
inefficient way to cool and heat the building.
It is, I mean, we could consider that. I don't have that built into here. We didn't really plan on that.
Yeah,
Because it did look kind of
you
cool.
wouldn't have to immediately do it because we did
No,
this.
yeah. I think there was fans up there too, weren't there, circulating?
I don't remember.
That area is, that is the one area that is air conditioned as well as heated. And you're going to need to hire a facilities maintainer, which we used to have in our budget. Because we just aren't going to be able to, if we're going to have this building, we aren't going to be able to, number one, I can't lose my operations manager for months while that building is being, number one, renovated. We need to have somebody to oversee that.
Project manager.
Yep, and number two, we're just, we're taking on another building with more facilities, and we're running like crazy taking care of buildings when we should be doing other things. We need to hire somebody to oversee that.
But they're probably two different people. A project manager for construction.
Well,
may be
we could
different than a
handle
maintainer.
that part. It's the facilities part. The maintainer that I'm talking about could do a lot of the work in-house. He could do some of the plumbing work. I'm not looking for a licensed guy, but I'm looking for a guy that could cut a hole. I'm looking for a guy that could, we'd have to be very particular when we hired this person and get what we want, but he would be an asset to the town far and beyond this project.
Estimated costs?
I have $59,000 if you look at the contract. less benefits. I don't know what benefits are.
34%.
So, okay. So, when you add up those items, that totals $222,000. Now, there are items that are going to need to be addressed within the next 5 or so years. We're really going to need to do a permanent HVAC system in there. We can't be leaving, you know, that's about $60,000. Doesn't need to be done when you move in, but I mean, to make it an appropriate town building, we should put in, you know, a heat pump system. It's going to need a roof. It's got 2 on it already. There's 2 layers of roof. You can see it working along the edges, you know. That's going to be about $250,000. Yep. I'm thinking a metal roof and be done with it, quite frankly. So, the parking lot is going to need attention. We're going to need to do some landscaping, some lighting, and some signage in the parking lot. Now, I have that all down here as a lump of $75,000 to be done after the fact, but quite frankly, if it's going to be a senior center, we may want to consider doing some lighting sooner rather than later.
And parking lot,
for the parking
people don't stumble.
Basically, yes. I mean, these are things, I have it after the fact, but we may not want to wait too long to do that. And the last thing I had was, it's going to need some exterior doors for about $25,000. That unfortunately totals $410,000.
Plus the 222.
Yes. Well, yes.
Right.
Yeah, that would be the total outlay.
That's inclusive of the 222.
Yes. No.
No.
Just the
No,
add-ons?
The add-ons, I mean, the roof is $250. You got $75 for the, I mean, it's
I'm getting the sense you guys don't want to do this.
no, I don't, no, I'm not, I've been accused of being against this, and I'm not. I am, however, I want people to see what it's going to be. And I don't know what the purchase price of the building is, and based upon what you probably could not build a senior center this size for what it's going to cost to do this, new, between the cost of materials and labor today. I doubt, and I don't see this town, quite frankly, building a building anywhere in the near future. I just had a task. I came up with numbers.
I have some questions. So, I lost the math there. 222 and 410, what is that? That's 632?
Yep.
Of the 632, how much of that is a one-time expenditure versus a recurring cost? Because as you were going through that, it sounds like most of that was a one-time expenditure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you got the bathrooms, the floors, the cabling. I mean, the paint, obviously, you're going to have to do, you know.
Yeah, but no more so than you're going to have to paint in here. So
Right.
20 years.
Right. I mean, the roof is 20 years. I mean, you know, most of it is...
Is it fair to say that 90% of that is
Yes.
a one-time shot?
Yes.
Because with the 600,000 number and your maintainer, that's the only thing that's not a one-off. So with a $59,000, what else is it going to cost you to run the building once we get it? So you got to pay for electricity. You got to pay for heat. You got to pay for the cleaning. You know, whatever.
Quite frankly, the good thing is this particular building is on well and septic, so there's no water bill and there's no sewer bill.
But there's still...
Eventually, you may want to tie them in if there's a problem, but it's not necessary to do that.
So here's what I'm looking to get to, is there is an existing senior center just down the hill in the fire department. There is funding budgeted to operate that facility. What's the delta between what it costs us to run that facility and what it would cost us to run this facility? Because that's your true cost.
Didn't have the time to do that.
Okay. If you were to guess, not holding you to it, would it be more or less than we're paying now?
I would say the square footage is, I think it's, let's say a little more. Gas, you got gas. You got water down there, you don't have water down there. You know, it might be close to a wash.
Okay. So let's assume...
Don't hold me to that.
No, I won't. But now let's hold you to that. Let's assume that it is effectively a wash and that there's no additional budget resources that are needed to fund the new facility. What becomes of the existing building?
It's up to you guys.
Is there, somebody's got to help me out here. What is the impact on the only remaining occupants there and their budget in terms of being able to continue to operate that building? Because that budget is a split budget between senior center and fire.
Well, they would have to.
That's not correct?
No, we handle all the maintenance costs of the building regardless.
There's none of that built into the fire department's budget? Okay.
Not maintenance
That's
wise,
helpful.
not maintenance, electricity, depending on who's doing
Nope.
that, but there's no maintenance.
Everything's, we pay all utilities, everything.
Okay, that's helpful. So that means it still is effectively a wash once we buy the thing. Maybe.
Maybe.
Now, of the roughly $600,000, that would be a one-time shot. There is money that is sitting in CIP for a study to be done pertaining to, is it still there? Pertaining to, that's gone, what did we use that on?
Well, there wasn't much, and we used some of that to renovate the area down there.
I thought there was still money there to offset some of that cost. All right, well, that gets me to my third question then. I think it's my third.
I think it's more than that, that's okay.
Is this sufficiently large enough amount of money to bond it? And if so, do we have space in our debt service to take on
There are
bonding?
other projects coming up for bonding with CIP as well. So you gotta be careful, because probably, when you start to conglomerate them all together, yes, you do want to bond in bigger amounts, but there's some bigger things on the CIP horizon too. Don't ask me to list them, because I don't have that off the top of my head.
This is an awfully good project, though.
I'm not saying
and
it's
been
not.
pending for a dozen years at least, because I've been around for a dozen years, and
I'm just saying, there's things like the pumper truck, is it? What truck is it?
Yep, and you got
The
another.
pumper truck that's $1 million.
Those costs are gonna stay the same for the senior center whether they are or not, because you still gotta heat the building. So how are you gonna take the money?
And then, but does that include the maintainer too? That
Yes.
dealer? Okay, so, and this maintainer is a good thing, because
Yes.
just to say that, I know that we have one maintainer, if you want to call him a maintainer, and he is really flat out. And so to have another maintainer would be good, and that person would not just be tied to that building, he would go all over
Exactly.
the town.
He would,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think if we are gonna move forward, we're talking to the real estate agent, there's an offer in on it already. Another church wants to buy the church, so, and they made a pretty good offer. So I think if we did want to offer something, it would have to be in the, about a little over 400,000, I think we'd have to offer. So that's where we are. I put it on the table because it is, why I'm saying, boy, get a senior center for 400,000, that's a bargain.
so we should really not talk numbers in open session with a real estate deal?
Perhaps, but I think I don't think that's that bad. I'll go with the transparency thing there and say that, if I was in, and I'll say this also, if I was in the family, we'd talk about it, and we don't have to stick to it, but if it wasn't a multiple offer, I think we've got to come up, if we are going to do this, we have to make an offer fairly soon, if they're going to,
You know, this
Go ahead.
building is how old?
84.
84?
1984.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, all that. Now, I drove through there the other day, and that roof looks like it's gonna need it sooner rather than later.
Well,
From what I
within
see.
the next 5 years.
Yeah, without
That's sooner,
question,
yeah.
without question. So if I add the stuff up correctly, maybe I'm wrong here, but we're knocking on the door of $1 million here. Am I right?
By the time you're done. probably,
Yeah, knocking on the door of $1 million plus another 4 plus, so it's gonna be a $1.4 million.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
No, it would be,
Several times.
no, it would be, if you add that 4, it brings it to about $1 million. Because if you're at like,
630.
if you're talking 4-ish and 6, you'd be about,
Well, you had 226 or 222,
yeah.
with bathrooms and all of that.
Yeah.
And then you had, plus changing the HVA system, 60,000.
Yep.
The roof, 250,000, you
Yep,
said.
yep.
Okay. And that comes to,
Well, that was
And
310, then we added the driveway and the doors, it came to 410.
okay,
So if you had the 410 and the 220, you're like 630.
okay.
For the purchase.
Plus, and then if you
Okay, so
want
we're
to
talking
afford with it.
about $1 million, okay, at the end of the day, in kind of the best case
Yeah,
of everything.
yeah.
And, you know, not that I don't dislike the property or anything, I mean, that's a great thing, you know, location and all of that. But I also thought a lot about over the past year or so, you know, in Broadbrook, we really don't have like a center area for stuff that, Rouse Point has a nice section over there where you have the Veterans Memorial and all of that. We don't kind of have something like that in Broadbrook. I was thinking about the Harrington property up on the corner that's for sale for $330,000. And you know, if the town purchased that, I kind of have this vision that you could kind of make this big horseshoe driveway go out on, you know, both roads, Main Street and the other. It would become like a park like that where you could put up a senior center building. And, you know, because the cost of the property is pretty low. You have utilities there that are close by and so forth. And, you know, to get money to just put up the senior center, and then you could add on to that over time because you have the land there to do it. There's, I think, 30 plus acres there. That to me kind of makes more sense than dropping $1 million here. And then you'd have something that would be new into what it is you want. That's my thought. And again, it's about having some central part in the, you know, we had the parade this summer and so forth, and, you know, if that's sold, that, you know, there won't be a place to do that in the future kind of thing for congregation. And that kind of bothers me a bit, that, you know, there'll be other things that come up for the town and organizations to do things, and to have an area like you have there now that you can have a carnival, or you can have something that's going on for something where we really don't have that, and you have a central location. You can kind of envision what I'm seeing as a big open broad area for multiple access and so forth, that people could come and be proud of an area. That's kind of how I look at it. If we're going to do a spend, that's kind of how I would like to do it.
Any other thoughts?
I appreciate the vision that Charlie's putting forth, but that this is an opportunity to get something that is nearly, it's low cost to move into in the scope of things. It solves a problem that has been lingering for a long, long time, and it's a moment it's an opportunity that's fleeting in time. I didn't even know the Harrington property was for sale, but I bet we haven't put any offers in. And this seems like an opportunity that I don't want to be rash, but it seems like it's here and it's doable.
Yeah, and I also said if we did buy the church, it is a piece of property. And if we wanted to sell it in the future, we could get at least $100,000 back, and so it's not a complete lost money, but. But
I also think the health of the fund balance lends to the argument that we ought to move forward with this. We have more money in there than we ought to.
That's true. The audit came back and indicated that. So how about Andy or Steve, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts on it?
I just see the church, once you get into it, costing significantly more than $1 million. I trust what Len's doing is the best he can, but he's winging it. We all know that. When you get into the details of renovating that building, I'll bet you're over $1.25 million for it. Now, what's the right thing to do? We have land here in town that we have purchased for municipal area. We have the Harrington property that Charlie brought up, which is land you could build a building on, which is designed specifically for what we would use it for the senior center. And I think it deserves that kind of a look-see, a kind of a cost trade-off as to what is the right thing to do. I just don't like going off and saying, that's it, because we haven't done our homework on the thing at this point in time.
I agree with what you're saying. You know, it came on the market, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
If we take our time though and do feasibility studies on a property we own, a property we don't own that doesn't have a building on it, and this building, everything's going to be sold. There's going to be nothing left of
Well, we
those
got the
three.
Kogut property.
And then that comes to Lenny's point where we couldn't build for this cost a building. You know, we're able to get a building at less cost than it would cost us to
Yeah,
put
and
one
it
up.
would be more than the senior center. We're hurting for space here. Like, we're gonna go into the budget process and we have to plan for when we're gonna meet. We're gonna have to scramble to find places to meet around town. All of the annex is now available. But this has many rooms in it and meeting rooms, and two of them are pretty big, and then you got the major hall there, and you've got a kitchen. So I would have a hard time making this decision, but I also know that because there's an offer in on it, they're not going to wait a long time for us to make a decision. So.
There are offers from another church, is it?
Yes. And maybe the real estate was just, agent was just trying to pump things up, but he said it was a pretty good offer. You have to come close to 400,000.
So if another church buys it, that means it's non-taxable too, right?
Yeah. Same thing with me.
And I don't think the piece on the corner of Main Street and 140 should be bought by the town. Should be left alone. Let a developer buy it. I can see something good going in there, something like a Cumberland Farms or something like that. Maybe CVS or Walgreens, something like that could go in there. We could collect some good tax off of that corner. So my opinion is I wouldn't even vote to buy that land. Let someone else take it and develop it.
So, if we did, it would have to go through planning and zoning.
Yes.
Yes. And how about the Board of Finance?
Yes.
Okay. So, we could make them an offer contingent on being approved by the Board of Finance in the town meeting.
Now, we don't even have enough information. What is the square footage? How does that compare to going up there, you know, this is...
Yeah, no.
I have the square footage. I mean, I can tell you the square footage.
That'd be great.
I'm not gonna tell you what the booth is, obviously, but I can tell you the square footage.
It has to be way bigger than the senior center right now.
No doubt.
Well, I think one thing is that the senior center, you almost have to be a young athlete to get into it from the parking lot.
Okay.
Keeps them healthy.
There's 3.5 acres. There is...
Could put in soccer fields there.
There is... Come on. 5831, 5,831 square feet.
That's going to be substantially larger than the...
Church use, 1 story. Year built, excuse me, 1964. 1964. The parking lot was done in 88. So it was built in 1964. And it's 5831 square feet.
So that's more than what it is now, right?
I absolutely want to do this.
Well, do you want to make a motion?
I just don't think we have enough information.
Okay.
Where You know, we should get somebody that's gonna give us real numbers about what it's gonna cost to do this stuff. Like, I know that you know, did the best you could, but we should be hiring somebody to say, this is what we want and how much is it gonna cost? I think that's the first thing you do before you just jump right into this.
Well, and the only reason, I agree totally with what you're saying, Charlie. But I think if we do that, we won't get it.
I agree.
Well, we're looking at $350 for travel, and here we're looking at, you know, over $1 million. Like, okay, I don't get this.
Okay. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a valid argument. I wouldn't know how to vote.
I don't think that's good for the town, without getting additional information. What's it on the market for? What's that paper say?
422. 422,000.
That's what that page says?
No, this didn't say that. This was just from the assessor's office.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the listing.
Okay. But I think it would behoove us to, for the selectmen to go through there, look at it. If we have an obligation to the town to do that.
We don't have right of first refusal on it, though.
Oh. What do you mean?
It's not ours to lose. You know, there is another, it's not like they're coming to us and saying, if you don't want it, I'll sell it to somebody else. There's somebody else who's got an offer in it.
Yes.
So this is a negotiation at this point.
Yes.
There's two offers.
Two offers.
That's what Melissa's saying.
Another one? Is it a church? Two churches or? Eventually?
Potentially.
Potentially. Well, we can do that. Could we have a special meeting then, just because
Yeah.
I think there's some urgency?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so let's postpone the decision and let's look at the church and get some more details. Okay.
Lynn, how do you go about doing that? You're going to spirit it, I'm sure. How are you?
What information are you looking for? Are you just looking at the church and the square footage stuff, or you want to get more exact numbers?
More exact pricing. You're going to draw up some kind of a document that tells you
It's
it's
called an
going to
estimate.
And by the way, they're the guys we're going to ask to do this. He's already done it.
Well, let's look at the church. And then you have a better idea of what needs to be done. I don't know.
I mean, if you all want to, you know, or a group of you want to meet down here and walk through it, I don't know, we could probably get back in, right?
Oh,
Just
sure.
Get a feel for.
I've been there.
I don't know. I mean, if you want something more than what I've got, I think we'd have to get some like a project manager of some sort, or a construction manager, to go through there and you know, measure square footage and say, you know.
You have to write down what you want. What you talk about.
Well, that's.
And no one's gonna do that if you don't own the building. And no one's gonna want to give you an estimate if you don't own the building.
It might be difficult to get a more exact number, because, you know, it's not like you're going to necessarily be giving them work. They're not really working up something they're going to do.
Yep.
And Lenny, you and your department have a history of coming in with a number, and then when the project is finished, you're under budget. You have an established pattern.
I don't think we've ever come in over budget.
If you're saying that that's the best guess that you guys have, I'm convinced that that's going to be a high ball number.
I would hope.
This is exasperating.
Well,
you know, I'm the only one who can't use the place, right?
good. Hey.
Yes, you included.
Let's postpone the decision until we do that.
Until when? When are we going to postpone it until?
Well,
until when's the special meeting?
I would, give me a second here, let me think. If this is what if we made an offer.
Commission.
What?
You end up paying that person a commission or something if you get a realtor.
Well, you do have one.
I'm
Called
talking
up a
about the
realtor.
realtor for the church.
Oh, okay, the church realtor.
Yeah.
I move to approve, or I move to authorize the first selectman and the Realtor of record to negotiate a sale price for Grace Episcopal Church on behalf of the town, and submit that negotiated price back to the Board of Selectmen for consideration.
Okay? I'll second that motion. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
I'm opposed.
Okay. So I'm just gonna negotiate a price now. I'm not,
With Lori, yeah.
I'm not gonna make an offer, am I?
Well, you and Lori should work on what that strategy is, yes. You can't, we've given you authorization to go and like do the talking and then come back to us with whatever the deal is that you cut, and we would approve it and then send it to town.
Or discipline.
Oh, you mean deemed approved or deemed defeated?
If I come back to you with your deal and you don't like it, then you can say no.
Right.
Okay. That's a vote. You vote. no.
Correct.
Okay. Or you can vote yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. I think I understand it. I think, okay. So we voted, and I'm going to go talk to Lori Gabriel.
Moving on.
Yes. I think you should stand up. Because, well, let me say something. We can't hear you, basically.
Yeah, I said there's other things that we're looking at in the town as a totality. We're looking at the fire department, and merging that into one town fire department with another. And I think the sooner we can get people that are using that building, such as seniors, out of there, that'll make that fire department more valuable to the town, in my opinion. And then down the road for the renovations, it's going to be a senior center. There's options out there, small sale grant money that we have for improvements. We'd be able to sell some of those repairs through that project, unless something else supersedes that. But there's an option out there to get grant money for seniors and for that type of a building to grow. And then with 3+ acres, there's outside activities that can then take place where now everybody's fighting for space over there, and what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. They need space for their training and stuff, and they keep moving stuff. So I think when you look at the town in its totality, you got to look at that too when you're deciding whether or not you're going to purchase it or move it to a town meeting or not. So I just throw that out there because it's just, you know.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to throw
Sure.
something out as well, too. This is, due diligence is the word that strikes me. It's coming from a business background. And the whole thing is pretty short-sighted to come in here tonight and say, we don't really have a 3 or 5 year business plan. We don't have a town developer that has usually all kinds of contacts with local real estate agents and developers and people like that. And an interesting sidelight is if we're going to put $59,000 into the projection to hire another town person, why shouldn't that be a developer? Okay, I guess all in all, this needs a lot more study, a lot more communication, a lot more input before we send it to disappoint all the people that make a decision to do the behind-the-scene negotiations to a town meeting, and then you guys are disappointed because they say, what are they doing to us? And the town meeting is the final say on this whole thing. I had a couple of short sidelights, technically speaking, like I personally believe in these systems right up here when we start talking about new HVAC systems. That takes care of the air conditioning, the dehumidification, and the heating, and it does it very efficiently. The other thing is, in terms of your negotiations, do you know right now that Lori Gabriel has an exclusive on this, or is it open to MLS? And everybody else can throw their hat in the ring with offers and get other people and other churches to take an interest in the building. I think we ought to sit back, take some time to talk about investing in the long-range future of the town. You know, we're really talking about decentralization. We got a town hall annex over here, you know, the safety complex is part of it, except that we got a fire department here, and a fire department here, and a senior center here, and a town hall here, you know. Maybe we ought to think in the long range, what we thought a few years ago, consolidation of the town hall and its agencies.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? We're moving along. Presentation now. Presentation of appreciation for Steve Dearborn by the veterans. Why don't you guys come up? Huh? Oh, the 250th, I should have mentioned earlier, we was postponing it to another time. We weren't ready to finish it.
So the Veterans Commission wanted to recognize and thank Selectmen Dearborn. Steve has helped us out pretty significantly over the course of the years, but this one is in particular has to do with the 250 parade. He came up with a tractor and a nice shiny trailer for us all to ride in the parade. He even helped us decorate it and put down the hardware store and bought some supplies and so forth. So we just wanted to recognize that. So this is a Town of East Windsor proclamation, being hereby known to all that the Town of East Windsor recognizes Stephen Dearborn for his commitment and assistance to the Veterans Commission to mark East Windsor's 250th anniversary celebration. Dated this 13th day of December, 2018. Bob Maynard, First Selectman, Town of East Windsor. Jim Barton, Chairman, East Windsor Veterans Commission. Thank you.
Congratulations, Steve. Congratulations.
Okay, now budget workshop dates. Here's some calendars. Pass them down. Could do,
You're missing a commission on the 5th.
okay.
You're missing another couple of commissions that usually will here on the 5th, just letting you know.
Yeah, but what we're going to have to do is decide what dates we're comfortable with, and we're going to have to find places to meet. We might have to meet up at Park Hill, we might have to meet at the Scout Hall, we might have to meet
Just
at the
letting you know.
Annex.
Somebody's here on the 5th, just letting you know.
Somebody's here on the 5th of the month? Yeah, okay, but actually, we're not supposed to start on the 5th, so we're starting on the 7th.
I know. Okay.
All right. Okay, so how about the 11th, which is a Monday?
Just a question.
Sure.
I only have February. We are going to start in January?
Not for the departments. No.
Okay.
We were talking about maybe doing some CIP stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't stuff, it's
Okay,
CIP,
all
this
right.
is the department. We could also do the 21st, that's another Board of Selectmen meeting, so we could, at 6 o'clock, is that okay with you?
Yeah, 6 o'clock is no problem.
So the 7th and the 21st, we're going to show up here at 6?
Yeah. Pass these down so I don't forget.
So what other day?
How many workshops do you anticipate needing to have?
Last year we had 8. Maybe we won't be so time consuming, but.
I also think it might be in our interest if we put a time cap on them, not to exceed 2 hours
Per department?
per night.
Per night. Okay?
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
That's been done in the
What-
past. It's
Yeah,
been-
well, we could start, if we had a different, we could start at 6, end at 8, we could start at 6 and end at 9. That might be,
That's a long time.
it's a long time.
How about the week of the 4th? How about the 4th as a starting and one date?
Don't we have a charter specified start date?
Well, we have a scheduled date, which I don't know if I have here.
Charter doesn't speak to when we need to turn over the budget to us.
Yeah, it said they had to turn it over to us on the 7th.
Right, that's my point.
But I think it will be available sooner than that. So I don't know if we have to stick to the charter.
You can start as early as the 4th.
Again,
Because that's after because you're gonna do your public hearing on the 4th. You can start after that. Like,
Okay,
the Board
so-
of Ed is gonna have its first workshop after the public hearing.
You're doing the public hearing
You can start to
jointly?
deliberate after the public
and
hearing.
the public hearing's on the 4th.
Yeah, that's what we had agreed to previously, right?
Okay, yeah, well,
Jointly, right?
Joint. Yeah,
Joint,
we're gonna do a
okay.
joint.
okay, so we can do it, we'll start after the 4th.
You can actually start on the 4th if you prefer.
Oh,
That's all I'm saying is just
Yeah.
immediately following the hearing, you can start.
okay. You're going to start on the 5th, is that
No,
right?
we're starting on the 4th.
But you're going to go,
The Board of Ed's gonna start on the 4th after the hearing. We'll go probably over to Broadbrook or something.
okay, all right. You want to meet on the 4th too?
Yeah, we could do that, maybe one of the ones that doesn't take so much time.
Okay, good.
So we're meeting on the 4th.
Yeah,
Like the Cemetery Association or...
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and
Yeah,
that's our next, once we pick the dates,
Yeah.
we'll have to,
Work
and
on the
I'll
dates.
work with you guys, we can do it with emails,
yeah.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, well,
No, the hearing is at 7, so.
the hearing's
it
at
has to be
7.
after the hearing.
So after, and the hearing will probably last an hour maybe, so we start at 8.
If it goes like most of those hearings, it'll last about 15 minutes tops. And that's allowing a lot of time for silence.
Okay. Hey,
It's true.
yeah, well, if it's true, that's good communication.
They're not generally well attended, and people don't tend to say much at that particular hearing where we're talking about the
Yeah,
pre-budget deliberation hearing. There's just not a lot of,
I
there's
agree with
generally
you.
not a lot said.
I agree.
So we can do the 5th and 6th as well.
You want to do that?
Yep.
Okay.
What time?
7?
Bob?
Is 6 okay?
Okay, 7 and,
Skip's out here, somebody
Yeah.
else, huh?
and
How about
then,
6? 6?
well, you and Charlie figure out which you want, 6 or 7?
6 is good.
Okay,
Which day?
that's the 5th and the 6th.
They are here at 6:30. 6:30
But we'll have to find a different place, that's all.
to, okay, he asked me a question.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Gave an answer.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna find different places. and
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
gonna do it at
and-
6 o'clock.
yeah,
Yeah, right. And the 6 o'clock too,
yeah.
wherever we end up, on the street, whatever.
How many total meetings, Bob, do you expect?
As I said, last time we had 8.
8?
So we got 3 there, 4. So we need 4 more.
And we got, actually, we have one, we said we'd do one on the 21st.
How about the 12th? We gotta find a place other than here, but
All right, sure.
again at 6?
That's 6. 18th, 19th?
Yeah, let's do the 18th, I like.
Okay.
Townhouse closed that day.
Oh, President's Day.
It's a holiday. yeah.
Never mind. Let's do the 19th.
And what date do we have to be finished?
28th, we have to be finished.
Should be done by the end of the month.
So that gives us 6, let's leave it at that for now and see if we need more.
Good point. All right, so those are the 6. And we'll start picking out departments and scheduling things and looking for places to meet. Okay. Next item, approval of tax refunds.
I've got 7 also.
Selectmen's reports. Steve Dearborn.
Nothing really to report, just hope everybody had a good Christmas, good New Year's. Hope everybody's happy this year, that's all.
Okay. Next one, Andy.
No report. EDC did not meet.
Okay. Jason.
The acquisition for the development rights on Riverbend Farm closed last week. That's 115 acres, which represents 29% of the total acreage that was preserved by the state in 2018. It's a very good win for the town of East Windsor in terms of preserving our rural character. We also, the town's portion on a per acre basis there was $1,800 compared to a state rate of 5,625 acres. So that's a good partnership to preserve, actually do something meaningful to preserve our rural character. That's a win that ought to be celebrated. Also, I know discussions have been ongoing concerning the disparate tax treatment with the folks in the Warehouse Point Fire District. I've had conversations with folks and I remain committed or convinced that the way to solve that is through the budget process. So as we go through these workshops, I think it's important that we keep in mind that that is the easiest remedy available to fix that circumstance. I look forward to having more conversation about that. That's all I have.
Okay. Can I ask about how you do it through the budget process?
I would budget an equal amount as is given to the Broadbrook side and have the voters approve the budget. That is clean as a whistle.
Yeah, that's a good start. Okay. Charlie.
Just a comment on that. Andy and I have been meeting with the Broadbrook Fire Department and Warehouse Point Fire District and moving forward with trying to understand if we can make this into a single fire district or whatever we have to do. That's in progress right now. And I think next month we'll have a further understanding through a meeting with their members, and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, that's great. And I have nothing to report. I've been talking all night, so. Okay, and for some reason on this is public participation again.
I saw that.
Wow, okay. It's there, it's there. Public participation. Yeah.
Scott Morgan, 106 South Main Street. I just wanted to say I think Lenny did a very good job tonight, talking about the church and talking about what it needs and everything else. And he's pretty accurate most of the time, almost all the time, on his numbers when it comes to projects. I know we did a very good job with the school and all that. So I just wanted to say I think that he's pretty accurate on that stuff, and you guys should definitely take that into consideration when you bring stuff forward. Thank you.
Okay. Hope.
Hope Carlson, I would like to know why multiple emails and even some of you being handed documents in your own hands proving that Pullman and Conley is extorting money illegally from the town. Even a judge has discovered it now. And I also have given you proof that the tax collector has misappropriated funds from a bankruptcy trustee and turned those payments from those funds for taxes into zeros, thus forcing my family to double pay with Kaplan from Pullman and Conley's illegal rate, plus the double payment of some of the taxes that have already been paid, plus the interest rate, in order to redeem my home. That's extortion. I've sent you emails and you promised me a meeting. I have it on a recording. I have a lot of things on a recording. I would like to know when this is going to be addressed. I've given you until the 11th. I don't want to have to do this with my town, but the implications to these people from me filing suit and coming out with this will be great. And that's not fair to do to us, to try and cover up mistakes that you all made or aren't aware of because someone's not telling you. I have documents right now on me from the court, not even from myself. You're irrefutably proving these things. No one will even look at them, and I've emailed all of you multiple times begging you for more than a year. Why? Why do you get to take my house and extort it from me? Why? And watch on the news, because I know you all might think I'm crazy right now. This needs to be discussed, and I'm not going to just be quiet and feel defeated. This is wrong. There's other people who have had to pay Kaplan's illegal rate to redeem their property. There's other people being charged Kaplan's illegal rate. But it's not a big deal. I sent you the article in Torrington where he did the same exact thing. You told me, go ahead and sue the town. If we've done something wrong, we should be sued. When are we going to look at this, honestly, and come to some sort of agreement together? Because communication, working together, and transparency are your new motto, aren't they? This isn't transparent, Mr. Maynard, at all. You've known what's been going on for more than a year. Have you told these gentlemen? Have you brought it up to them? Have you shown them any of my documents? Have any of you looked over my documents? Because I've emailed them to each and every one of you. I was told you didn't know about my case when I stood in front of the board in October. Why is Attorney Kaplan charging 2 times for an executive session with you guys if you aren't aware of what's going on? What's really happening here? I have his billing details. I know what he's been charging. If you want to call my bluff, but I'm telling you it's going to come at a very high price that's eventually going to be forwarded to the good people of the town, because your insurance rate's going to go way up. I don't want to do this. It's always been in my best interest to work with the town. And you can call my bluff all you want. The next thing I'm going to do is have these documents printed in the paper.
Well,
you might want to look over your documents. I'm not bluffing. I have them right here if for some reason people didn't get emails that I have read reports to.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'll say. I wrote it down because the town of East Windsor is a party involved in litigation with a second party. So we're in the town of East Windsor is in litigation with another party. There's 2 parties in litigation. And anything I say or the Board of Selectmen say can be used against the town in the court. And they call it a party admission. If I say something, then I'm one party that's making an admission. It's almost like the Miranda rights, where they say anything you can say, anything you say can and will.
Payments be applied to the taxes, and then you see all the payments added together come out as one chunk on 2 separate papers, and the amounts reset to 0. So if no payments or offsets have ever been paid, how was she able to give me that documentation proving that there have been payments after she signed a sworn affidavit stating that there were none? And I have the affidavit, and I have my tax papers with me right now, and apparently you guys have them too. This isn't right. It's not right, and you're not going to take my home and make me and my 4 kids homeless because I refuse to be extorted from. I will go big, big, and bigger from my box on the corner of Main Street. Sorry. This isn't right. It's not fair to us, and what the implications to you guys, it's not fair to you guys either if you don't know about it. Please just look. Protect yourselves. Protect yourselves. Look, they're court documents. They're not messed around with in any way. They're just simple copies. I have the originals. I mean, that's all I can ask you to do is look. But I mean, here we are for a second time on camera. I'm asking you to look and no one has, so you're already implicated as a board. I mean, I don't want to do this. Don't make me do this.
The gentleman sitting behind you, or beside you, sorry.
My name is Jeff Simpson. I live at 45 Woodbury Road. I'm her fiance. You guys sit there today, I'll listen to you all day long. Talking about you want to protect the town, you do the best for the town.
Transparency.
Really? You
Protect
do the best for
it
the
now.
town?
This is happening. Protect your town. It's happening. Protect us.
How many more people has this happened in this town? I've been here for 9 years.
We've already found other
How many-
victims.
how
I'm
many
going to
guys
tell you that right now too. I'm not going to give names, but yeah, there's more.
How many people in this town, you guys live in this town, right? What if it was happened to you?
I beg your pardon?
How happened if it was happened to you?
What if you were
Would
being
you want somebody to
extorted
come
from?
step up for you?
Whether the
How
people
about
doing
you?
it knew that was happening or not, but then they refused to help you. Even if they didn't know about it, but once you made them aware, they refused to help you.
You're the first selectman, sir, right?
Right.
You're the next selectman, you're the next, you're the deputy first selectman, right?
Your powers are so broad that
Okay.
you have no clue.
She came to you guys. I know she came to you several times. And now you're turning her away. How dare you? You're elected to that seat. It is your duty to answer to your people.
And your girlfriend slanders my mom on Facebook, and I have pictures of that too.
You guys are elected up there to protect this town. Your people are in this town. When they come bring up your problem in this town, you're supposed to look at it to see if it's factual or not factual. Not do nothing, not sit on your hands.
Don't pretend it's not there. We're not ostriches. We don't bury our heads in the sand.
And that's no offense, that's what you guys have done.
It's not all of them. All of them aren't fully versed in what this is going on. So saying it's all of them is not fair. Please don't. It's not.
Don't want to say.
But could everybody at this table possibly be implicated at this point? Yeah, for real. And I don't want to do that. I grew up here. I grew up here. I used to be proud I was from East Windsor. Jason grew up with me. This town is completely different from what I remember as a kid. You have to think twice if you want to tell people where you're from, because we've become a laughingstock. Do you guys look at our own social media page? The residents are not happy. They're not happy. They want change. And I mean, this is just going to be a catalyst, and I will bring the change. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let this happen to my family, and I'm not going to sit by and be quiet about it when I know that there's other people and other victims that it's happened to. But Pullman and I know you don't want to comment, so I'll just tell you, Pullman and Conley's contract allows them to charge the town between two certain numbers for whatever they're doing, okay? That's fine. What's going on is Miss Attorney Kaplan is charging a higher rate within those two numbers, so it looks fine to you guys, but it's against the court-approved rate for municipal foreclosures and the things that he's doing that have caps on them that are mandated. He's charging over those caps, and on November 5th, the judge caught him. He's already admitted in a document I have and it's his request for additional fees. He admits to being paid 2 times at that rate already. He's already received money at that rate, the illegal rate. You guys have paid him at the illegal rate 2 times without knowing, okay? I get that. But the 3rd time he tried, he was caught. He was asking for close to $10,000. The judge basically barked at him a little bit, said he was going to be adjusting his bill. There's a 40% reduction in what he was asking for. That $10,000 he was asking for got turned into 6 by a judge. The committee's fees were challenged, and they were told to submit proof of their hours. That was on November 5th. We are now looking at close to 2 months with nothing from the committee to prove their hours. My home was appraised. The appraiser charged us $1,200. That's happened numerous times, well over $1,000 for appraisals. She's only allowed to charge $275. We need to fix this. I'm not going to pay any extortive amount of money to redeem my home. And if it's taken because I can't pay, at a price that shouldn't exist, I will sue this town and I will file notice in the paper calling others forward for a class action suit. And then we'll begin tearing apart all the civil actions that I'll have with nobody doing anything about it. I don't want to have to take this stance with you guys. We've been backed into a corner, and I just really feel like a lot of this stuff hasn't been communicated to you properly, per se. Or that a full understanding of it hasn't been grasped. Which is why I'm here today. I'm not the kind of person that just jumps into lawsuits. I believe that if people don't know something's wrong or they're not understanding of it, they shouldn't hide from it, which seems to be what's happened here. But they should be allowed a chance to correct it. I'm asking you, gentlemen, to please look at this, realize what's wrong, and correct it, because this is my final attempt to get your help. The next time you hear from me, it's going to be a marshal walking in here during a town meeting to serve the board. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this.
Is there any further public participation?
I guess,
Sure.
I just want to, have a healthy and prosperous new year to all of you. Believe it or not, I've seen in the past 3 or 4 months a rather more harmonious communication between the agencies and the public at heart. I missed the last Selectmen's meeting, but I did take it upon myself to at least read the minutes, and I guess you got a lot to look forward to regarding the 2 fire districts. What to do. It's best if that's 2 days on that job on your particular board. The one thing that didn't get taped was the previous Selectmen's meeting that I attended, and there was a lot of dialogue, good, harmonious dialogue regarding the charter and the charter revision and what needed to be done. So I'm just going to capitalize on the bottom line of the whole thing, the thing that suited my fancy very well, and I seem to share similar thoughts with Jason Boswell, was a hybrid plan. It allows for us to keep a town meeting, allows for us to have a professional manager, regardless of what you call him of title, and however you want to put on the side of that, a director of finance. I just hope that whoever is the liaison with the Charter Commission is keeping those things in mind, and will report back to us on those times.
Yeah, and actually, I would say, send me an email, or send the board an email with those ideas in it, and we certainly will relay them to the Charter Revision Commission.
Good idea. And I will try as a New Year's resolution to practice my grandmother's definition of communication. It's 95% of your ears.
That it is.
So in that vein, just as a point of clarification, I did affirm to Mr. Like that that form of government does exist. I did not say that it was my preferred form of government.
Okay.
If I made that inference, I'll take it back.
Yeah, I'm leaning for town administrator. Is that the term rather than town manager?
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea, at least for now, of having a selectman, first selectman. I think that's it. Well, I think you need some help.
I can see why you like the other one, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to end tonight's meeting, and I move we go into executive session, including Peter Alberici. Is there a second? How about that, Charlie? You want a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jason, you going to vote?
Aye.
Watching you and talking about you every time I'm open questions I ask.
The dates you guys threw out for your workshops, I'm gonna have to go to those as the CIP chair.
Okay.
The only one that I don't have some other prearranged thing
right.
on it is the 21st.
21st.
So if you could potentially put me into that, I would be great.
21st, I'm happy. You only got an hour.
That's the last one we have scheduled. That's ideal for that.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, that'll do.
Okay, I'll put it on my calendar. course, I'm assuming that the board is going to accept all the workshop dates that I've already picked, but we'll see if that happens. I had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Think we can shut these cameras off?
I think that's an excellent idea.
You're gonna have to.